this next segment on move management, we'll take a look at the move planner. And with the move planner, the first step is always to open up the project that you want to work with. In this case, I've been using the Harrison reconfigure. And I've already assigned a couple of floor plans to this project, which are all I need for this one, but you can have as many floor plans in a project as you need to define all the moves that, or all the spaces that are going to be part of your move project. In this case, I'm going to start by opening up the floor plan for the Harrison campus. And you notice I have some highlights here that I'll take a look at. So the first thing I normally do is I'll go over here to highlights and we'll take a look. And I'll turn a whole bunch of things on so you can see what I've already built, and then we'll talk a little bit about how I built it. So I've turned on all my colorizations, so these are my proposed spaces for admin in green. These are my spaces for distribution, and these are my spaces that I want for legal services. So I've kind of laid out where I want those people to go. And I can also have themes that define currently existing conditions. In this case, I've only set up one theme, and that one is to see what spaces are currently occupied. And in some cases, as part of building out this demo project, I have assigned some people to various conditions as far as move tos and move froms, and we're going to go over all that as part of this presentation. So as far as the top row of commands is concerned, they mostly work the way they do in the drawings menu. So if I click here, I can select and I can pan and zoom and all that sort of thing like I normally do. One of the things that I have here is, in addition to my normal labels, in other words, if I just want to see who's where, I can see spaces, and if I zoom in, I can see the names of the people that are living here. Let me just show you some of the things. If I turn off occupied spaces, the grid, so you can see, all right, this is showing me the people who are currently in these spaces as I navigate around my drawing. And if I want to, I could, instead of seeing who's there now, I can see who I've currently started to move into places. So that now if I pan again, I can see that here's somebody that I've got going into a space. And if I choose to highlight move out labels and I go find an orange color, so you can see that orange represents move from, and you can see that Anne is one of the people I'm planning on moving out of this particular space. So these color codes are intended to give you easy ideas of where you're moving people from and to, and maybe where you've already assigned moves, that sort of thing. So let's take a quick look at how I create a manual highlight. Maybe I wanted to add something else to this group right here. So to do that, I click on Manage Highlights. And I get a dialog box that shows me the current highlights that I have here. And if I want to add one, I just click the Add button. And now I'm seeing a list of all the highlights that I may have created over a period of time. And if I wanted to use one of these, like unavailable spaces, and I wanted to add it, I just click it and I'll save it. And then when I close this, unavailable spaces will appear here as a theme that I can use to maybe highlight some of these spaces as not being usable for this particular project. Going back to highlights for a moment, and going back to manual highlights and going back to add. If none of these was what I wanted, I have the ability to create a new one here, and all I have to do is give it a name and give it a color, and it'll appear on the list. And then once it's on the list, I can add it and make it part of my particular highlight group for this particular project. So that's how we work through manual highlights. Now we'll take a look at dynamic themes, and for this example we'll click on our Manage Highlights and we'll go to Dynamic Themes. And here's where my current theme is. And again, like I could with manual, I can go see what other ones I have in a list that I might want to use that are already pre-built, or I could build a new one by clicking here if I want to. But let's go back to here and let's take a look at this one. So we're going to edit this dynamic theme to give you an idea of how this one was built. And so we open this theme. And we can see the label is currently occupied spaces, which is what you see there. It's got a black color and a slanted bar hatch pattern. And then to go to details, it'll open up the parameters by which this theme is actually developed, which says that available seats equals 0, meaning that the seat in the space is occupied, or all the seats in the space are occupied, and the planned head count is greater than 0, meaning it is an occupiable space. And so with those are the parameters that define what a currently occupied space is. And that's pretty much how you build a theme to display the information you want. It's all based upon whatever the parameters are in the space component of Evolve, because you can theme on virtually any field in the space record. And just to give you a quick look at another theme, I can go to my list of currently available dynamic themes, and I can click here, which adds it to this list, and then once it's here, I can click on it and I can open this one up and see the colors and the names and the hatch patterns. And if I look at this theme and look at it, you can see the theme is built of head count equals 0 and planned head count is greater than 0, and it can be as many ands as I want, but you get the general idea. I can key on any field and build out my theme to reflect the status of the space the way I need to. And we should also review the highlight buttons down here. So if I want to turn on all the highlights, I can click here, turn them all on, and then I can turn individual ones off if I want to, or I can hit here and I can turn them all off and get back to my original situation. Also, if I turn them all on, and let's say I want to add a highlight, I can click here and I can apply a highlight. So right now the apply button is on because you can see that little red symbol there. So I can click here and add those spaces to the ones I want to be part of my proposed spaces. And if I said I changed my mind and said I really don't want to do that, I can come over here and click on remove and unhighlight them and be back to my original situation. And so that's pretty much the way we can deal with how the highlights work. So for our little training exercise here, we've designated some spaces to put distribution people and admin people and legal services people, and by their colors. And so one of the things I need to do first is to see people who might be living in these spaces who don't belong to those departments right now. And so by turning the currently occupied spaces highlight on, I can see there are people in these 5 spaces. And so I probably want to look at them and see who they belong to and whether I need to move them out or not, in case they don't belong to like legal services in this group right here. And doing that is pretty simple. All I need to do is click here to go to spaces and click on the actual space, and I can say I've got somebody here who belongs to release management, and I can see I've got somebody here who belongs to development. And so just as an example, I know that the first thing I need to do is to move at least these 2 people out. So that's going to be my first action item. So the first thing I'm going to do here is come over here and click on moves so that I can see the list of people that I currently have in my move project. And I'm going to click over here on this space, And so that I have this person highlighted, then I am going to click up here in maintenance, and I'm going to say move out. So this has the effect of creating a move request to move that person out of that space, because that's the first thing I want to do. And so I've got move management. So the only thing I really need to do to execute this is put something in the description which says I need to move them out. And once I've populated that field, I can say save, and several things will happen here. This space, you notice, gets highlighted with the orange bar, which means I've designated this as a space where somebody's being moved out of. And you'll also notice that that person's name has been added to the list of actionable people that something's going to happen to over here. And so I can repeat that function with all the people that I want to move out of these spaces to effectively do step one of getting them moved. So next I'll go to this space up here, and I will do the same thing. I will click here. I'll say I want to move out. And about the only comment I need to make is move out of the space. Obviously, I could be more detailed if somebody needs the information or more information than this. And I can say save, and we've added that person also to the move out list. So now I've got two spaces here that I'm planning on moving people out of. Now, one thing I didn't do when I moved Angela out of the space is I didn't specify when I wanted to do it. But since this is a plan, I probably want to go up here, find Angela, double click her transaction, open her space, and pick a date. And I think I want to get her out of there probably by the end of February. So I'll say her effective move out date is going to be the 28th of February. So I've got her sort of scheduled. The other thing you can do here, depending on how sophisticated you want to make it, you can put sequence numbers in this box right here. And this kind of defines the order of how we need to move everybody. So if we're dominoing people, we're moving people from A to B, B to C, C to D, you've got a way of moving them in a sequence that makes sure the space you're moving the person to is open by the time you get there with their stuff. So that's the purpose of the sequence box. So now I'll save this transaction. And we're going to go back to our drawings for a moment, because in my hypothetical little project here, the people that I'm moving out of here, I'm going to move to building 38. So I'm going to open that space plan, and I am going to come over here and click on currently occupied spaces. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. How about this? And I'm not getting anything lit up. So essentially, all these spaces are open, and you can see highlights here for people that I am planning on moving into spaces, because these highlights come in the minute I specify that I'm going to move somebody into that space, even if I haven't yet. So at this point, I'm going to say, all right, I'm on this plan. I'm going to go back to my list. I see Angela here, so I can click on Angela. And you notice it says pick a space to place Angela. Well, I'm going to put her right over here in the space right here. And what date do I want to do that? I may as well keep it that target date, so I'm going to move her out of the space that she's in now, and I'm going to move her right to here. There's no reason to particularly change that. Come down here, and I think that's the only piece of information I needed to add right now, so I can say save. And you notice that space highlights with there's a move to now coming into that space. So now I know that space has been assigned to somebody as part of this move project. And you notice there's a check mark over here, meaning that I've created a transaction for this person. And you can kind of see who I've worked on and who I haven't by whether I've got a check mark or whether there's a triangle there, meaning there's still actions that need to be taken. So right now on my action list, I've got 3 people from legal services that are designated to move into those other spaces. I'm going to show you how to add a few more people to the list before I actually move a couple of people in or specify where they're going to move to. So for my little exercise here, I want to click on the plus sign. I want to say I want to add some occupants. And I'm going to come up with a list here. I'm going to go to my filters. I am going to search for cost center, legal services, and I am also going to search for spaces, and I'm going to put in 0, meaning right now I am specifically looking for homeless people. And then I'm going to apply, and you notice that my list comes down to from the 1,000 names I had to start with down to a few here. So I'm going to pick a couple of people just to add to the list, and so I'm going to pick here. I'm going to hold my control key down and pick another one, and I'm going to say add. And you'll see those people get added to the list. So where I had 3 legal services people before, now I've got 5. So now we've got a little bit of an idea of some people that we want to add to that area on the first drawing. So now I'm going to go back to my drawings, and I'm going to go back to the space plan for the Harrison campus. And I've got my spaces here. And I am going to now go back to my people. And I'm going to click on Joan. And you notice it says pick a space to assign Joan. I'm going to assign Joan here. And I'm going to make it a target date. I know that space isn't open until after the 28th, so I think I want to move that into March, so I'm going to say March 7th. I'm going to move into that space. And again, I can put all these other dates and other information in if I need to. And I can add a description and detail, so I can get as much information as I want. There's no move from here because this person, if you remember, that I picked was homeless, so she's going from being homeless to being in a space. And then when I click save, you notice there's a check mark here, and you'll notice there's another color here. So now this space has 2 transactions against it, one moving a person out on a certain date and one moving a person in on a certain date. So once I'm familiar with all these color swatches, I kind of know transactionally everything that's going on with these spaces. And I'll just add one more person into that right now by select a space. I'll put it right there. And I'll target the same date, 7th, and I will say save. And you'll see that both these people now have check marks against their name, and the color codes reflect the transactions that are going on within those 2 spaces. And if I want to see my occupieds again, I can click here. I can see these 3 spaces have nobody in them anyway. So if I wanted to pick a 3rd person here, and I wanted to move them in, and I wanted to move them into an unoccupied space, I might pick the same date just because that's probably logically what would happen. But when I save this, I just have the color code, and I know that the space isn't occupied, never was. I don't have to worry about moving anyone out of here. So where in this space here, I've specified someone to come into this space, but I haven't actually moved this person out of the space yet. And if I wanted to do that, I would click here, and then I would click here to see, well, this person's in development, so they definitely don't belong in this space. They're going to have to go. So I can create a transaction, a move out transaction. That will say that on the, I'll just continue to use my 28th date because I can do that. So let me slide down this form. The target date for moving them out is February 28th. and move out whatever details I need here and save that. Now you can see I've got two transactions here, a pink one and an orange one, and if I zoom in closer there, you can see the colors better, so you get an idea of what's going on. So the next thing we're going to look at here is labels, and to do that, the easiest way would be to turn off the hatch themes here. And if I click on labels, I can see first, with labels on, who's living in these spaces currently. So that's one look, so to speak. And if I want to see just move-in labels, I can click on move-in labels. Now this is showing me people I'm planning to move into these spaces when I do the move. And also I can look at move-out labels. And for the most part, move-out labels are going to reflect the people that I've designated who are coming out of these spaces and going somewhere else. So depending on what you need to do from a printout standpoint, however you're sharing this information, these different label displays will kind of let you organize and show people what you're planning on doing as part of the overall move project. Another item we need to mention here is assets. So we've talked about adding occupants to the list. We can also add assets to the list by clicking on assets and coming down here and clicking on add and say add assets, and that brings us to our assets dialog box over here. And I can either do granular searches for asset information or general searches depending on what I'm doing. In this case, I'll just type in computer and do a search, and it'll filter everything out by computer, so I can come down here and find what I need to find, and click and hold the control key down and select whatever assets I want that I need to be part of this move. And if I want to, then I can, when I save this, they will become part of the move too, and I can transactionally do the same thing with these assets that I was doing with people a few minutes ago. So both people and assets can become part of the move process. And you can see that adding an asset to a space puts the same move to color there for the asset as it does for the person. So the idea that something else is being moved into a space, or something is being moved into a space, can be either an occupant or an asset, as far as this color code is concerned. So at this point, we've looked at most of the basic features of the Move Planner, and you understand these lists over here are combinations of assets and occupants, and that off this icon you have all the drawings that are involved with your move, so that you can take actions across multiple drawings using commands like move in and move out to or creating move in and move out work requests to get people between floors, that sort of thing, and with pretty much one or two click actions. And finally, when you've got all that information put together and you hop back to the move project screen, and here now you can see that everything I've done in the planner from both an asset collection point of view and from an occupant collection point of view is all here. And depending on the completeness of this information and who's reviewed it and how much it's been edited, I can pretty much collect and take action on as much of this as I want to, and click here. And if I wanted to execute everything that's going here from both an asset and occupant point of view, whatever I've highlighted here, and if I say execute moves, it's going to take action and do as much as it can with the information that I've got here. And the same with create work orders. If my objective, instead of executing the moves directly, is to generate work orders that are going to go and be assigned to people that are going to take the actions to execute this move. We will create the work orders necessary to do that. So you've got a pretty complete system here for driving a move project by whatever rules that are prevalent in your organization, either on a very direct basis by executing the moves directly, or by the more, shall we say, documentable route by creating work orders that drive the actual activities that make the move happen. So this is a quick look at the move planner, move requests, and move projects that let you pretty much set up and arrange a move and share that information with as many people as you want, because whoever you give access to this project can come in and collaborate with you on creating moves and working within the move planner to organize whatever needs to be organized related to the move, that sort of thing. So you get a pretty complete set of tools here for whiteboarding a move and making it happen. And this pretty much concludes our tour of the move management module. Thanks for watching.